everyone, welcome back for the second video of this demonstration toward the falls. In the first video we went over shapes and really refining parts of the foliage. We still have a long way to go in that area, and we basically haven't even started on the lower section. So if you haven't watched the first video, please go back and check it out before you start this one. And as a reminder, there will be one more video in this demonstration, so it will make 3 total. So there will be that one more coming up towards the end of the month. Let's get started. Just to give it a little bit more of a shape that makes sense to me. Okay, at this point, I've taken a break, which I do often in my painting process, because it's really easy to get wrapped up in the, to use a cliche, in the trees instead of looking at the whole forest. And I've noticed a couple of things that I want to refine while I'm thinking about them. And that is that this shape is not correct. So I want to go in and start refining this shape. This tree behind this main tree trunk does come up behind it a bit more than I have it happening here. And to me, the shapes are the most important part, value and shape. So I'm going to come in and work on refining this area a little bit. I come in with a little bit of a darker color to start, because there is quite a mixture back here. Actually comes up quite high. I really like how there's these 2 separate sky shapes. I want to try to get that feeling in the piece. If I really look at it, it's just a little sliver of light, really, until it hits right about here. It's quite a bit warmer. I've already started in with some of those other colors, but I'm going to layer in a little bit of this green. Using varying strokes. I'm going to put a little bit of that color up here, where the sun is hitting a few random leaves. I want to vary my strokes as well. And I think I'll start actually bringing some of that down into this area. Kind of overlaps part of that trunk. This is going to need to be refined quite a bit. Not loving the color and the shape of that back there. I think I am going to put in this little tree trunk because it has these little patches of branches that I really like, and it will give structure to that area. I'm going to come back in with a dark down in here in this bush. Try to just get a little bit of those branches indicated. There's a really beautiful transition here where you can see the edge of this tree, and I'm going to go ahead and work on that just a little bit. Comes right over this trunk in the background. I think part of what's going to really help this pop is when I start putting in these ground highlights. I need to work on this shape too. Right now it's a blob, so bring this up a little bit, this dark over the light, and I do that occasionally. I may need to brush a little bit of that out. So what I will do is just, that light that I put in at first, it was too soon. And I'm just going to take a little synthetic brush that out a little bit to get some of my tooth back. I'm actually going to come in here with, there's some branches that are really sticking out here. I like that effect, and I'm going to indicate those with a kind of a taupe color. And then I'm going to come back in with the sky color. And this needs to be corrected, obviously. This was a branch that was in the foreground coming over, but I'm still working on this background, so I'm actually going to brush that out so that I don't have to be distracted by it while I'm working on this foreground area, or the background, the trees behind. And you will notice I'm working on this upper area of the painting first, mainly because I don't want some, dust from pastel falls down and it will get stuck sometimes on this lower area. And while it's not a huge issue because you can take it outside and tap it and blow it off, I don't want to have to really do that. I want to keep the areas crisp. So I'm also going to adjust the shape here. I really like these lights, the sky, and I've kind of lost it. So I'm going to go in and work on that. One of the things that'll help me do that is getting a few more tree branches in. Because it will give me places to put sky holes. Don't love that. There's a branch there that it makes this look like a hand. I don't want that. Lightly letting the pastel skim. Okay, come back in here and reestablish a little bit of my sky because it's a very important part of this focal area. So I really want to be careful trying to find it. In fact, as much as I don't love to do this, I am going to brush out a bit what's going on in here to get some tooth back so I can get my sky where I want it. It's rarely perfect the first time. Sometimes it happens, but not more often. I have to continually adjust. I do like how in the middle here of the crook of the tree, it really is defined. I'm going to go for that. And I can use my finger to smudge part of it to make it look more natural. There's quite a bit of light down here, and I don't like how thick this trunk has become. So using the sky, I can thin it out. I can always go back over it with more greens, which I probably will. Coming in randomly, yet looking for where those branches are, because that will help me see that that's where sky holes are. I like smudging those sky holes partially. Makes things look more natural. Starting to get this shape a little better. I really need to look at this and see what's going on here. I like that roundness because it helps carry our eye up and around. So I want to capture that if I can, but still be mindful of the branches and what's going on in here. And while I'm thinking of it, I am going to add a little bit of a warmer color into the sky. I'm going to add a little bit of a turquoise, especially as we get a little bit lower to the horizon line. Just add some variation. It's nice to have more than one color. And I also chose a little bit of a lighter color than what I had going on. I want to bring a lot more light up there. Really, that will be a good place to define this trunk, or branch, I should say. It's just like that. Again, I may need to, I can see that I overworked that area just a tad. So I'm going to come back in just like that. It's fine, because sometimes what's nice is that since I brushed that out, a little bit of that dark remained, but now it just looks like a lighter leaf, and I like that, or lighter section of the tree area. So that's good. Come in with a bit of a truer green up in this area. I really want to start the leaves are looking a little blocky because of the layering that I've been doing. So I want to reestablish some of that natural behavior that leaves have, and then I will start coming in with some of the lights in the blue, lighter colors, lighter value blue and turquoise. Being careful about where I put this. Comes right over and down and over. Light is hitting that. I can see that light's hitting that bow a little more than perhaps some of the other areas. And I'm going to bring some of it up like this to help lead the eye up into this area. But first I want to be sure that I'm looking, that I still need to work on this background area behind this main tree. I just want to be aware of that, and I haven't gotten there yet quite. Overlapping. I think it would be nice to add some branches, perhaps, some more branches. I'm going to step back. Layer a little bit more in here. That's how you get the natural effect. And it's just practice to find that balance between overworking and knowing when to stop with this layering process. And it's, you know, it's not always successful for me. I think, you know, this is the first time I've videoed a landscape and myself talking while painting, so it's definitely a different experience for me than just being in the moment and painting. Something I'm going to have to work on because I want to share with you guys. But it definitely takes more of my concentration than if I was just painting here alone in my studio. Coming in with a bit of a darker color, I'm just being a little bit intuitive with it at this point over here. Going to bring in a little bit of a softer pastel to lay on top of these terries I've been using, working with a blue earth here. It's gonna lay down a little bit easier because honestly I've slightly overworked this area at this point. I'm going to come in with some more branches over here. I'm going to use a new pastel, which is a hard pastel, just a dark gray. There's a lot of them going on up in here. And, you know, I'm trying to keep it fairly random. I'm going to come in with my lighter color, sky color, which is really going to start to help things pop a little bit more. Working around my tree branches. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to continue to really refine this area, and I want to I've brushed some of this out. I wasn't happy with it, so I'm going to bring in this bright yellow. It's a greenish yellow down over around the trunk down here. It really comes down. I've got some of it going on up here, which I like. And I'm actually going to start to bring a little bit of that down into here, just a little, just to start to indicate what's going on. See a little bit of it back in here behind this tree. It gets pretty light back there. And this area of grass has some green, some bright green in it. So that's good. I'm going to go ahead and put this branch in. I like it, and I think it will add some interest. I wasn't sure if I wanted it, but I do. And I can see that there's these patches of leaves that are attached to it. So it kind of comes out of this darkness, and I'm actually just going to add a little bit of that in, like that, lightly scumbling, and then have it come up like that. And that's fine. Bring it over a little bit, like that. I don't want to mess with it too much because that will ruin the spontaneous effect we're after. So I'm going to come in with a pretty bright, that might be a little bit too saturated, but I want to come in with a very, very light yellow, because this is one of my focal, this is the focal area, and I want you to look here. So we're going to start to come in. This is where this light is really hitting. I still have to come in with a lot of my sky area, but right now I'm going to work on this. A lot of it's about letting go and not overthinking it so much. I think honestly I've been overthinking it just a tad because I'm videoing for the first time. So, gotta stop doing that and just work on it. This is very enjoyable to me, this part of the scumbling in of all of the different tree colors. Okay. I am going to come back in now. I want to really get some more of my sky established. As you can see, if you've been watching this whole video, it's a process of back and forth. It really truly is. It's just a lot. And I want to go even lighter. I really want to make that pop. So I'm going to go even lighter down here. I'm going to use the edge. And it really, if I look, it comes down about halfway to the middle. So quite a bit. I have some wiggle room here of getting in this sky. And really, I want to find a pleasing shape. I want this to appear to be, this is I'm carving around the tree. I'm essentially making the tree shape, this tree here. So I'm going to come back in a little bit with a bit of color, and just because I don't want it to be too uniform. It's starting to get that way. Come back in with my light again, and there's little hints, and I'm going to put one right there, and little hints of it on this side of the tree, and I'm just tapping, just a little, just like that. I want to bring it up into here, really looking at the shapes. I like this light color. But when you like something, it's easy to use too much, and I don't want to do that either. That is starting to read more the way that I want it to. I'm going to come in up here with some more blue. I can see that this shape here it differentiates itself between the fir tree behind it, and I like that. It gives it a little shape and tells you, hey, I'm my own tree. So we can put that in. there is, you know, let's go ahead and move over to this side and put some of the sky color up here because it'll help us start to see the piece a little bit of a different light. A little more finished, if you will. Just a little bit, just to see what's going on up there. I'm going to add a little bit more of that blue up here. I really like La Carte paper because it does hold. As you can see, I've been really layering on. I don't, you know, my method changes. Sometimes I don't layer this much. I think that this piece has been, you know, so far a little bit of a challenge for me, simply because I'm talking for the first time, and that talking for the first time while I'm painting to someone about my process, and that takes up a lot of the energy of what I would usually just put in into my piece. But with that said, I'm still getting happy with this piece, and it really just goes to show that you can, you know, pastel is very forgiving. You can really make this work. If you don't like something, brush it out, you know, and don't give up. And it takes time. I mean, like I said, it goes through an ugly stage, so it's important to not give up. I'm going to put some tiny dashes up in here because this is a little bit heavy looking right now. I want it to look like there's, you know, that there is light shining through those branches. And what I may do is put a little bit of yellow up there because this is a very warm piece. I wouldn't mind having a very, very light yellow to come into some of this light. It's always nice to, that might be a little bit light over there, but it's always nice to layer your, you know, the same value. So I have a light blue, I put in a little bit of a turquoise and even a yellow. That is a little bit of a strong mark. It's not the color, it's just the mark I'm not loving. So I'm gonna lighten that up just a touch. I'm actually gonna come in up here with just a little bit of a darker blue because I just love making my sky holes, probably a little more than I should because I could be overworking it, but overall I don't worry about that too much. I do see that it would be nice to have a sky hole or two on this edge of, carefully placed on this edge, just so that we can indicate where that trunk is. So just like that. Maybe, you know, one or two more right there just to indicate. I got a little bit close in, but I'll fix it. Because while I don't worry about being too accurate, there is, you know, that's a trunk, and it'll be very obvious that there should not be a blue dot on the trunk. So I'm actually pretty happy with that side now. I like that, and we're going to move on. So you saw all the layering that went on in that, and that's part of how my process works. So I think what I want to do is I want to work on this area a little bit before I come over here. So let's work on that. And the more that I look at it, well, I'm not going to make that maybe necessarily quite as bright as it is. I do like having it there because it shows you the differentiation. There's midtones on either side of it. We have to have a horizon line. So I'm going to find something to put in there. I'm going to start with something fairly light. And I actually see it looks like the path goes off that way, and that might actually be the place for us to start. I'll put the path in back there. It's pretty dark, so it comes up and around and back behind these bushes back here. It's just a little indication of it, but it helps us see, and that will be adjusted. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just go like that. And then there's all these bushes in here. I like this color, and while it's in my hand, I'm going to use it over here in some of my path. I want to see how that looks. It's a darker color, so I'm going to keep it in some of these shadow areas, because this path is actually going to be, you know, if you squint, it's pretty bright. It's brighter than a lot of the other elements in the piece. So that's good for now. I may actually bring it just a little bit up into there. It's always fun to put in the highlights, but we're not there yet. I am going to go ahead and add some color back here. See what happens. I'm going to establish a little bit, you know, what I really need to do is work around this bush to negatively paint and get this background distance showing. So let's do that. I'm going to use a cooler color back here to indicate that it's farther back. Sometimes I'll use my hand like this just to help steady me a little bit. And that's good. That's might go a little bit more neutral, but is close to what I'm going for. I think I will bring in a neutral, just a neutral kind of a gray to, you know, just kind of mellow it out. But that already helps establish that there is stuff going on back there and that there's distance. And that's what we want. We want to show that there is distance. Now, once I put in the path, that will really help. And I think I'm going to do that just because sometimes you just need to put in some of the fun stuff. And it really helps you start to see what's going on. So I'm going to find that nice, beautiful kind of mauve color and get that in. And I think I might go with something like this. It's a light warm pink, light salmon color. And it's going to come right up to the edge of this tree. There's a shadow that comes across. And I may actually bring that over a little bit because it's the same color. The light is shining on the path over here as well. And, you know, I have to be careful with making this mark because it's going to be a very sharp edge and an obvious mark. So I'm going to try to do my best to be careful with it. That's not bad. I'm going to actually bring a little bit of that over here now. And I'm going to use the edge on this. I can always point up a little bit high, but I can easily just pop some dark back in there. We don't want it to look perfect anyway. And what I may do right there is use my brush just to brush it out a little bit, and actually I may just kind of come in like that, and then that was with my hard pastel, my new pastel, and then I might just indicate a teeny bit of foliage back on that edge. Just really muted, just like that. Okay. I think that it would be helpful to start to get some of, a little bit more of my path in. I need to see it. Especially right in here. I want to see what's going on. So let's do that. I really want to look at that color. You know, I don't want to just think, oh, it's a gray path. That actually has mauve in it. And a tinge of blue. I'm going to go with something like this. It's another muted pink, but it's a little bit darker. Come over like that. And I am going to use this color as a highlight color in my path. So before I go a lot farther with it, I want to come back in with some darks. So I'm going to go ahead and come in with another dark. And I used this one before on the path, and we're going to use a little bit more of it, just straight down the middle. I don't overthink this, just like that, just getting those darks in. I may go a little bit more violet over here for shadows. I don't want to go totally blue because this is a very warm painting, but for now this is a good color for the overall path. And you know, I don't want to completely finish the path because, like I said, some of this will drift down, some dust from up here, but I can always blow it off too. Or I don't blow it off in my studio, but I do take it outside and I'll tap and blow it off there. And you know, I'm just dragging, trying to keep it very natural. One thing I'm not loving is this really hard edge on this tree right here. That needs to be corrected. So, you know, there is another little tree branch back there, but I don't really want to put that in. I need to problem solve on that for a minute and think about it. What do I want to do there? How am I going to fix that? I think it might just be a little bit of color, a little bit of an impression of some leaves there to soften it up. And I'm not sure that that's the right color. I think I might go a little bit brighter. Because this is an area of interest, so might as well put this and bring it over a little bit, just like that. Down, and really start to brighten up this area. I'm actually even going to brighten that up more. Because it's really, I'm actually going to use a bit of a neon green. Because I really want it to pop right in here. There's light hitting it. Just like that. It's going to really see, I think it was Matisse who said, thimble of red is redder than a bucket full, and the same case applies, of course, with any hue, because I've got all these other values, neutral values going. When you put in a little bit of a really chromatic hue, it really pops. I'm going to do the same thing up here with a much brighter yellow now. I'm not sure if that's right. That's not quite what I'm after. I'm gonna go brighter and lighter. That's nice. That gives me that pop that I was looking for. Bring it up a little bit. Go down maybe just one value so that it's not so bright up at the top, because I don't want your eye traveling up and out of the painting up there. But I do want it to be unified. So I'm going to have a little bit of that color and even bring a little bit of that over here. Just so that it's not all just in a line. It needs to be, you know, there's some light hitting these branches over here. I am going to come back in with this color. I think it'll look nice. Perhaps even a bit of a darker color. And just along the edge of this tree. Give it a little bit of variation. Just like that. And I can come back in with my sky just a little up in here to really create some sky holes, to say that this is not just a big static blob, but there's air and light. And I have to be careful about that though. I don't want too much, and I want this shape to be nice. And remember, I didn't like that. I'm not sure that I'm making a good decision there. Let's take a look. I like that actually. That works. So I'm okay with that. I am going to bring a little bit more of this light blue up in here. I can start to kind of fly free with it now because I'm feeling more confident about what's going on in here. Bring a little bit of it down into here. I'm even, you know, I'm taking some liberty. It doesn't come down that far in the photo reference, but that's okay. I'm the artist. It's my painting. I can do what I want with it, and I kind of like having that deeper horizon, the sky there. I just feel that it gives a little bit more drama, and I like it. And because there's these big sky holes over here, I can add in some more of that lighter color blue, and it will read okay. So one thing I can see is I do want to smudge just a touch of this. I don't like all those hard edges, but that's just about enough right there. I'm going to start establishing a little bit more some of this area over here. So I'm going to take a lot of the same colors that I used. You know, I like keeping a fairly limited palette. I like the way that looks. It adds a lot of cohesion to your piece. So what's happening here is it appears to me that there's just a ton of light shining on this fir tree, and that's all that light color that we see there. So I'm actually going to work on the fir tree just a little bit more before I put those really brights in. Using a tapping motion, just like that. And there's quite a few branches that are coming out there, and I do want to indicate some of those. So I'm going to do that. Just bringing some out like that up here. Just kind of starting at a point and then lifting my finger off and letting it go. So I really think that's almost just about enough. And while I have this in my hand, I may come over here and reestablish a few branches because they've been lost. I've really worked this area quite a bit. And having these branches in will really help it look better, more like a big bunch of forest and not just a rendition that I've tried to create. Just gonna add a touch of chroma. This area is, even though it's in shadow, I don't want it to be just a boring hole of neutrals. So I really think that that helped a lot. And now that I've got those branches in, I can really start to add a little bit more. And I think I'm going to try something like this. See how this looks. And I use the edge. Don't try to paint every branch or every bow, but just the impression. I'm looking at where the light shines, and that's what I'm trying to capture. And that's close to it right there. I want to overlap a little bit like that. And then I'm going to come in with these lighter colors. There is a little bit of a lighter color up here. So I'm using a bit of a more neutral, lighter value of a green. And I'm going to put that in pretty sparingly. Just like that. I do want to establish this tree. It's time to work on that. So I need to get some more darks in there, really. I can see that. So I'm going to come in with actually a pretty dark brown, I think is what is needed there. And I'm really just going to squint my eyes and look at where that is. And it's really going to help also establish this area down here, which is some kind of a bush in the background. There's some little branches. And you know, I had put in that violet, but I think it got a little bit too light in value for that trunk. So I'm going to put it back in with that, just like that. This comes down a little bit farther than I had it, just like that. And just really looking at what these colors are. There's a little bit, this tree has some pretty nuanced colors. I'm going to go a little bit lighter. This is just almost a taupey kind of a color. And let's see what happens. I don't want it in too many places. One of the things that's going to help really establish the shape of that tree is this yellow behind it. I'm going to come in with some of that, and I'm using more of a green That's a very, I don't know, I might change my mind. I think I will change my mind as we're talking about it. Okay, I'm going to come in with some of this bright. We'll see if it's too much. I'm going to step back in just a second here and take a look. I like it. I think we're gonna go with that because it's pretty bold right here, and it'll help establish this area, you know, by painting around it. So come in and start to get some of those branches in. And it's really just varying up your strokes. I'm gonna come back in with a green. Kind of go over that a little bit, kind of a neutral green, because obviously that's not as natural looking as I want. This whole area right here is, it's not defined. And so it's okay that I keep it soft and undefined. But I need to go a little darker. Go ahead and bring some of that green up here. And while I have it in my hand, I'm going to put a little bit more. In fact, I've been using this color I see. Down in here. Still have to work on that. Back here, there's quite a bit of shadow. There's this patch of light, and then this shadow. So we'll start to just put that in to remember that we need to do that. So I'm going to come back in. This I may have gone a little light, a little too light to start here. So I'm going to come back in and using the side of my pastel like this, and I'm actually holding it between my middle finger and my thumb, or sometimes I'll hold it like this. I'm going to just really scumble to try to get a little bit more of a natural look. That was starting to look quite artificial. And I'm liking that. That's good. Bring some of that up into there. And maybe even some of that can come back to define a little bit of these branches. It's going to get quite a bit lighter behind that tree, so we can start to show that. And this is a lighter color, so we can put it in some other areas of the painting. Okay, I'm going to come back in here now, and you know, I think I need to go a little bit redder first. Let's go a little bit warm, and then come in with that light. So I like this color. That's pretty. It kind of gives it a different. We'll find somewhere else to put it. Maybe a little bit pink. Let me go one shade down. Let me find another. I love this Blue Earth set that I have because it makes it quite easy to switch values. You know, they go in steps. If you look, you can only buy them at Dakota Pastel store online, but they are in value shift. So for example, if you look at these two, it's the same hue, but it's a one step up in value. So it makes it very easy to find your value changes, and I think it helps train your eye that way. So that even if you're not using the Blue Earths, you can more easily find the value shifts that you might need. Okay. I need to, if I squint down, it looks like there is a little bit more dark than I've put in there. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to even see what that looks like. I don't like that. I tried a violet, but that's not working. So let's come in with this almost brownish color, just to establish that there is some darks in there. And then I can really start to come in with some of my lights over here. Now it looks like just a jumbled mess right now, but putting in my lights is going to help that look, give it some form. And what I'm really going for is there's these branches. And I might even bring a little bit of that up into here, but this is a pretty dark area, so I'm not sure about that yet. But I do see a lot of little leaves in this area, and I just want to slightly indicate that there's like a tree here that's coming over from the side. Bring a little bit of it down there like that. And it's always good if I'm using that color to use it somewhere else. And in fact, just bringing it up a little bit is not going to hurt. It's just going to add to the effect of the naturalness of the scene. I'm going to go a little bit darker here though. Bring a little bit. So that's not bad. That's okay. I'm going to bring, I don't like that right there. Let's cover that up. Let's bring some of this color. Let's see what that looks like. We need to get some light back here. So let's do that. I come in with, that's too similar. Come in with brighter green to kind of establish. There's this bush back here behind this tree that's quite bright, and just to start to get some of that in. I'm actually going to slightly come over because I don't want this trunk to look so straight, and I want some foliage to be around it. I am going to make this even darker. I'm still not happy with the way that tree is shaped. It needs a lot more dark coming down into here. start to bring a little bit of a brighter tone into this tree here. It's helping lead the way in. I don't want to put too much emphasis on it, but it needs to have a form. And you need to know that, oh, that's a separate tree. Bring a little bit of that up. It gets lighter as it comes into the sunlight up there. And it comes up pretty high, actually. I think one thing that would help, I'm really still not thrilled with this area, and I'm trying to figure out why, and I think, let's see, if I put a little bit of a bluish gray, it would help it look like there's some trees, some branches back in that background. And let's just see what happens. I can always brush it out, but I'm kind of liking that. Around the edge of branches, it gets lighter and bluer. And there was something just not natural looking about this area, and I'm just haven't been happy with it as I'm looking at it. So I'm gonna try to fix that. And looking at that, I think I like that a little bit better. I did dig in to this tree a little more than I meant to, so I'm going to bring some of my beautiful yellows back in, just like that. And I also noticed that there we go. That one branch, I was working around it, and that's never good because then it leaves a halo.